Have you ever walked out of an interview and been like, man, that was great? And then you just get that silence, no rejection email, no follow up, nothing like that. Like it just vanished, didn't happen at all. Well, I usually try and follow up after that, and a ton of other people do, and you typically don't get any sort of response, something along those lines. And then you kind of start to like second guess everything. You're like, okay, what did I do wrong? Did I answer this right? Did I answer this wrong? Like, how could I have done better? And then whatever. If it's one interview, you kind of shrug it off and you can realize, like, oh yeah, there's probably aspects of things that I did well and things that I didn't. But come 3, 4, 5 times this happens, it's starting to look like a pattern. You're like, okay, what is actually going on with this job market? Because it just seems straight up absurd. Well, it's kind of because things are rigged. Like you start to think, oh, this is rigged. Well, I just have had some experiences this week that absolutely tell me that this game is totally rigged. Yeah, I don't know. It's not like a conspiracy theory or anything along those lines, but algorithms are broken, incentives, they don't matter anymore. And so I just wanted to talk about kind of some of the things that I've experienced in the job search over the past 2 years. Like, I know I've been privileged enough to have a job for the vast majority of that time, but still, I always like to keep my ear to the ground and keep an eye out for like the next big career move. And this has been like the most interesting experience I've had over the past 2 years. Like, I've talked to countless hiring managers, and almost every single one of them has always said, "Oh, we're being expected to do more with less," which essentially means that's like wage deflation pressures. They're trying to hire seniors for entry level or associate positions, and I don't know. I've just had some real terrible experiences, and I'm sure you have too. So I just want to share mine and see if you can relate. And I'd love to hear about yours in the comment section. But like the worst one, no question this was the worst one. I was working as a contractor for a medical device company, and the director of a certain service, he came out, he sat down, we had lunch, and he's like, yeah, I want you on the team. We're opening these full-time positions and would love if you would apply to them. So a few weeks later, that position that we talked about opens up. I apply, and then HR, the recruiter's like, hey, you don't actually qualify for this position. I was a little dumbfounded. So I was like, well, what's going on? Like, the director literally said that he's opening this position for me. And turns out they opened it as a non-professional role. So my college degree didn't count towards any years of experience, and the years of experience that they were requiring, I hadn't met yet, based on the college degree not counting towards it. And so I was like, well, that's really weird. Like, what can we do there? A few weeks go by, and they finally get that switch to where it's like a professional role. My college degree counts towards my experience, so I was qualified for it. That's great. I do continue with the application stuff. After that happens, I'm waiting a few weeks, and at this time, there was another contractor hired for the same kind of thing, and the director was trying to hire her on as well. And so she was going through the same issues, and she gets kind of invited to interview. She interviews, and then she gets like the full-time position, and I'm still waiting for like interviews to get scheduled and all that. And all of a sudden, the requisition just closes. I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. So I reach out to the recruiter and ask like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, oh, I don't know. You'll have to talk to the director. And then I emailed the director being like, hey, what's up? I thought we opened this position for me. It was just like trying to see what had happened, and no response. And come a few weeks later, towards the end of my contract, one of the project leaders that I was working with was talking to that director, being like, oh, hey, what can we do for like making sure that we have a resource for this project? And like, is there any way that we could extend the contract here, or like bring him on full time? And the director goes, well, that's kind of weird that he's asking this now because he declined the full-time position that we were offering. I was like, that's not right. So I email him again, trying to like clarify the situation. My manager even emailed him. Neither me or my manager get a response from this director. So like no clue what happens there. And obviously didn't end up getting a full-time position based off of that situation. And then again, I had interviewed with other full-time positions at the company, and you know, they would always kind of defer to, oh, we were looking for, or we went with the candidate that had more hyper-specific experience, even though it was like pretty transferable experiences that would be required to function well in the position. So that stuff's been frustrating. And then, you know, at one point I'd been through so many interviews, and a lot of them would feel really good, but I remember a few interviews where literally in the interview itself, again, hiring managers go, yeah, you know, it sounds like you really know what you're doing, and you would do really good and all that. And the amount of like straight up ageism that I've received of like, oh yeah, you look a little too young. You like, we don't know that you're going to be able to, you know, command respect in this situation. Or, oh yeah, your experiences are great, but you don't meet the number of years of experience required, which is just the most frustrating thing, because it's just an appeal to authority. Like, again, I talk about it all the time. Years of experience does not directly indicate that you're going to be competent at the job. Sure, it's correlated, and the correlation there, the strength of that correlation is going to be directly impacted by like the intelligence of the candidate. So like I get it, like grand scale, like most scalable approach to hiring, that's something that's important, but I don't know, it can be super frustrating. And especially considering the fact, like, I applied to the military academies, and almost every single one of those interviews, like, as long as I was able to interview, I would kill it, and I would get like the recommendation that I would need, like, but every single time when it just like came down to like application, like if I didn't get to the interview point, I wouldn't be able to do well. But then as I like switched to the private market after college, things kind of changed. And, you know, I was thinking about it, and it's like, okay, well, in the military at that point, it was like very meritocratic, like based on like military academy. To get in, you have to have like really good scores, really good physical fitness and all that. And I would always do well with that. But then kind of as we get into the private job market and that sort, there's a lot more touchy-feeliness to it. Like culture is a lot more important, and I can certainly get a little bit robotic in how I approach things, especially in interviews. And the best interviews that I've had, I definitely feel less robotic. And the ones that I get like the responses back, it's more of a conversation. It's not like this, I'm sitting there and answering like a robot, even though that's how I approach my work. When I show my personality, I do better in the interview. But I don't know. On those interviews that I would do well, they would be like, oh yeah, we would love to hire you, but we have a hiring freeze. Oh, we would love to hire you, but you don't have the years of experience, or something along those lines, but we'll keep you in mind. And when a recruiter says that, I'm like, yeah, they're not going to keep me in mind. But when a hiring manager actually says that, like in an interview, I'm a little bit more open to accepting the fact that they might keep me in mind. But, you know, it'd been probably a year and a half, and that hadn't happened. And one of the interviews that I did really well, they wanted to hire me, but they were on a hiring hold. I was like, oh, dang, that's a bummer. Well, this week, 6 months later, 6 or 7 months later, they're like, oh, hey, we want to extend an offer to you if you're still in the market. I was like, whoa, okay. And so at first, like when the recruiter reached back out, I thought I was going to have to interview again and all of that. No, they just like straight up, they're like, hey, are you still open to the job market? And I was like, yeah. They asked like kind of like salary expectations. I was like, oh yeah, this is where it's at. And Like, great, that's awesome. We can meet here. I'll send an offer your way. Didn't even have to interview. I was like, wait, what? So if the job market feels rigged, that's why. Like, some candidates, I know I talked about it in previous videos, where trying to keep candidates warm or create a backlog to where you can hire super fast when hiring like opens up again, like isn't always the best practice. But you know, coming from this experience, like, well, yeah, as long as the offer is more competitive than wherever the candidate is at, given the right timing, it might work out, you know? So I don't know. It's just been super interesting. And I almost forgot, like, yeah, the job market is tough and it's totally rigged right now. But the most important thing that I'm going to have to say, based off of my experience of just getting an offer straight up once this hiring freeze was lifted, is that you just have to be patient. Because also an additional thing that happened in this perspective right now is the employee that got hired on full time when I didn't, she just got laid off. So again, it's hard to have that perspective in the moment, but time could totally change your situation without like your actual day-to-day situation being any different. Like, yes, comparison can be the thief of joy. Like if you look at somebody that has a really easy time of getting a job, but then at the same time, you know, if I was hired on to that full-time position, I would have just been laid off last week or 2-3 weeks ago. And it's all because that perspective didn't come to me until I realized, like, oh, this layoff actually occurred. And the same thing can go with, like, you know, you can think you can be in a better situation. Like, you can think, oh yeah, I got the full-time position, I'm gonna be safe because I have this full-time position. Well, you know, maybe the company had a plan to where, you know, a year and a half later, they're no longer going to need that position. So what are they going to do with you? They're going to lay you off, because many companies right now, they're not going to hold on to you and try and like reorganize you, especially when they can just lay you off and boost company efficiency, especially if it's a publicly traded company. When the economy is so tough, companies are beholden to stockholders. So they're going to do what they need to in terms of creating efficiency. And that often comes with layoffs, overwork the existing employees, especially right now. Existing employees, they're gonna, you know, they can recognize the job market is not great, especially if they have some friends that are unemployed, or if they keep their ear to the ground to kind of gauge the market. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, I don't want to have to do this extra work because now we're missing an employee and we have to take on that workload, but I don't want to lose my job and be in a job search right now. So companies are definitely taking advantage of the situation right now. And again, it's just a matter of perspective and patience. Like, it's real hard to trust the process sometimes, but just give it time, and I guarantee you something will come along. The economy is going to turn around at some point. So you just got to trust the process. Don't give up, because if you give up, then, you know, you're going to be literally the last person to enter the job market or to get a job if you give up now. So just keep your head up and keep trusting the process, and things will come along eventually. You know, I don't think the AI stuff is working. It's clearly not working. Obviously, the job market's in a very unique situation where there's a lot of unemployed people. There's a lot of people with a lot of years of experience that are in the market. So the younger candidates that have less years of experience are going to have a harder time finding a job. I mean, I can't imagine being a new college graduate right now. But the thing about AI and kind of the HR side of things is, you know, AI needs to be trained. And these companies, they're using like Workday's AI and Workday's applicant tracking system, and those are not going to be trained specifically to your company, which means you're probably going to be missing out on a lot of really good candidates. So, you know, it's not necessarily as scalable as a lot of people are thinking. Like, unless you're a large, like Fortune 500 company and you have enough data to support, like, hey, we can train an AI specifically to our company and our hiring practices, Like these AI models are not going to work. And even if you train them to your company specifically, like it's all going to be based off of keywords, which, yeah, I get it. If you are somebody that's in a specific industry, you should probably have those keywords on your resume anyways, because you've been doing that work. But if you're trying to make a hire that is somebody like transferring from one industry to another, but still solves problems from a fundamental first perspective, like project management is project management. It doesn't matter where you're managing a project. It can be applied to any industry. So I don't know. It's just every company is going to have something that works a little bit different for them. And then every hiring manager is going to have a different little process of preferences. And, some hiring managers are going to be really great at it and they're going to have really good processes because they've kind of been trained or taught how to hire well, or they learned it themselves through trial and error. But a ton of hiring managers don't have that experience. So I don't know. This is just, it's why the job market's broken. Like there's a lot of problems with the hiring process, especially for candidates, but companies, because they churn and burn through it and they have the time, they can wait. They're not going to try and fix the problem. I don't know. What do you think? Please share your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Until next time.